Welcome to my channel. My name is Mohammed Salehi and I am here to demystify Microsoft Teams. Today we are diving deep into a topic that's often requested: setting up guest access in Microsoft Teams. As someone who works at Microsoft, I have the inside scoop to make this process simple and clear. But remember, this is not an official Microsoft guide. It is your practical, hands-on resource for guest access. If you are ready to open up your Teams environment and collaborate seamlessly with external partners and clients, let's get started on our journey to master guest access in Microsoft Teams. So first, what I'm going to show here, I'm going to just clear up a few things. For guest access, generally, we need to open or configure a few settings. Just to show you what areas you need to configure is, first, you have to configure guest access to let those external users inside your organization. So this blue box, consider this your organization or your tenant. It is in Azure Active Directory. So basically, simple question: do you allow guest access or you don't allow guest access inside your organization? And you may say yes, go ahead, allow. This arrow button or arrow sign shows that you are allowing guests inside your organization for any other purposes. Now next, for Microsoft Teams, it is important that you also configure guest access inside Microsoft 365 groups. Simple question: do you allow guest access to be a part of your 365 groups or not? Let's say yes. So this is two areas that we configure. The third, obviously, SharePoint Online for our files. Files inside Microsoft Teams are stored in SharePoint Online. Other question is, do you allow guest accounts from 365 groups or from anywhere that's added in your Azure AD to access your files in SharePoint? Yes or no? Let's say yes, you allow guest accounts. Now that's the files part. And another section that we have for configuration is Microsoft Teams. In Microsoft Teams Admin Center, you have got an option that you can toggle on and off. Do you allow guest accounts? Yes. Now, these are the four areas that you generally need configuration. And this configuration should be aligned. If it is misconfigured, or one area says no file access, and then you allow guest accounts in Teams, obviously they will be able to add it to a team. At the end of the day, they cannot access the file, which is a kind of misconfiguration. Now, why Teams require all these resources to be allowed? Simple. We allow guests in our organization and then moving to 365 groups. Why 365 groups? Because every single team that a person is creating in Microsoft Teams is a 365 group, right? Now that 365 group is also created. As soon as you create a new team, it will create a SharePoint Online team site, which is also connected to the same 365 group that you created a team. So every team and every SharePoint team site that's connected for Teams is backed by 365 group back here. In this explanation, what we are understanding that 365 groups setting for guests will impact SharePoint Online as well as impact Teams, Microsoft Teams client. Let me start with showing you the configurations for Azure Active Directory first, and then we will move to 365 groups, set it, and then SharePoint Online, and then Teams. At the end, we should know exactly all the settings that we need to configure for guest accounts. So I'm going to open my test tenant here. I will start from beginning. I will open Microsoft Intra ID or intra.microsoft.com. This is the new portal that group's Active Directory in anything identity related. So once you are here, this is that blue box where you're allowing guest accounts. So you can click on external identities and then external collaboration setting. So this part is external collaboration setting. This is the first entry to your organization. First piece is saying guest user access restriction. By default, guest users have the same access as a member. This is the most inclusive option. This is set by default. You can go a little bit more restrictive towards this option. Guest users have limited access to properties and membership, and then guest user has access restricted to properties and membership of their own directory objects. So they cannot search anybody outside of that team. Or outside of that group. This is what that means. And then moving to next one. Now, guest invite restrictions. Who can invite guests into your organization? Anyone in the organization can invite guest users, including guest and non-admin. So this is a default setting. Do you want your guest to invite guest? And anybody in your organization should be able to invite, or you can restrict it more. As you're coming down, different options will give you more restrictions, or it's going to restrict the guest accounts further or users further. Member users assigned to specific admin role can invite guest users, including guests with members. Only user assigned to specific admin role. So there is a guest inviter role. This does not really apply to Teams, but you can do it outside of Teams. For example, you can add a guest to a SharePoint site without Teams, and then use this one for assigning, adding those. This is a specific role that you get, or you can say no one. So that's this one. Let's keep it member users, and then moving to enable guest self-service sign up with the flow. This one is if you are creating an automated flow or Power Automate flow, and then the guest can sign up for being guest in your tenant. It is no, so a lot of organizations keep that way. This option as a no. External user leaving setting. This is the best option to keep it yes, because when they don't need the resources that you're sharing with them, they can leave your organization. And then the last portion is a very important portion for IT admins. Allow invitation to be sent to any domain. Any domain literally means any domain, whether they are business or not business. It includes Gmail accounts too. As long as the guest account or the guest has an email, whether that's a Gmail, Yahoo, or a business email, they can receive an invitation to their email. So you can send an invite to them, and they can use their credentials to sign in as a guest and access your resources. The second option is deny invitation to specified domains. This is where you're putting a blocked listed domains, for example, some domains that you do not want to do business with. So you will put 5, 6, whatever number of domains that you are basically blocklisting them. And then this is a common one that a lot of organizations, they want to stay secure. At the same time, they want to allow their partners and clients to communicate with them as a guest accounts. This is allow invitation to specified domains. So you can say, for example, google.com, or you can say amazon.com, or any other domain that you have. You can add all of them. Now, once you add all those domains, after that, when the member users try to add somebody as a guest, they can only select the users from these domains, not outside of that. So this is basically the Azure setting. It is impacting all your applications, not just Teams. Okay, so this is one area. This is that blue box allowing users to be added to your applications, to your resources, to different areas as a guest account. Now, another area that we discussed through our chart is 365 group. So at admin.microsoft.com, it will take you to 365 admin. You need to be admin here, and then clicking on settings. Under org settings, under services, you will have a Microsoft 365 groups. So this means that, okay, once a user is added as a guest in your tenant, do you allow those guest accounts to be added to your groups? These are group mailbox. It has got SharePoint. It has got Teams. Do you allow them? This option, basically, if you check it, like for example, let group owners add people outside of your organization to 365 groups. If you uncheck this in this state, yes, guest will be added to your Azure Active Directory, to your tenant, but no one can add them to the groups. When you're checking this box, that means the group owners, they can add those guest accounts to the 365 groups too. And that's basically one checkbox here. Moving to SharePoint. SharePoint was another area that you will have options whether to add a guest or not. SharePoint is generally used for file management. It manages all your file access. From this page, you will have, by default, you will have anyone users can share files, folders using the link don't require sign in. This is default setting. However, this is also most insecure setting because anyone from your organization, they can share files through a link that the other end does not need to even sign in. So you don't know who is accessing your file. As long as they have access to the link, they will have access to the file. You can say new and existing guest, sign in to provide verification code, or you can say existing guest only. New means they can share the link, but that person has to sign in and it automatically add that person as a guest. Or you can say only people in my organization. If you are selecting this option, that means you're setting your SharePoint to SharePoint file, restricting SharePoint files from being shared with any guest in your tenant. So you can say existing guest only or new invite. Now this is just SharePoint. The same thing applies to OneDrive. You go to the advanced page, it will open SharePoint. So here is what you can do the same setting. OneDrive is under SharePoint. You can set that for, so you can say, for example, new and existing guest. This is at least you're requiring them to be guests in your organization and then allow them access your file. So that's the SharePoint. We covered Azure Active Directory, we covered 365 groups and SharePoint. Now, the last piece is admin.teams.microsoft.com to go to Teams admin section. And then under the Teams, under the users, you have got guest access. Now, at the top, you have got two options or three options. By default, it is on, but you can turn it off. If you turn off this option in Teams, what this means that yes, your tenant can add guest accounts. The group owners, they can add guests in SharePoint, in Outlook, wherever they are using 365 groups. But when it comes to Teams, they cannot add those users or those guest accounts to a team. If you keep it on, then what this means that they can add to the group, add to the team, and then you can control if that guest account can make a private calls like audio calls, video calls, if they can join a conferencing, sharing, and if they can edit their messages in that team that they are edit or delete their messages. So this is some management that you can control. So you can save it. So once we save our file, after that is turned to the end user. So I will record another video how to add a guest account into a Teams channel or to a team. But for now, let's review what we have covered so far. So we kind of reviewed at the very beginning all this stuff here. This is the complete picture. First, we need to configure our tenant, and then we need to configure our groups, 365 groups, and after that, we need to configure our SharePoint Online for our file access into our tenant, and then from Teams Admin Center, obviously we need that configuration too inside. Once everything is configured, that means from admin's perspective, you have completed all the settings and configurations for guest accounts. Thank you all for listening and watching this demo. Please feel free to provide any sorts of feedback, or if you have any questions specifically, I will do my best to make another video on your questions too. So thank you all.